Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. Hey, what you doing? Are you reading? Okay, so today, we're gonna do, that means me, we're gonna do the much requested and anticipated review of John Green's Turtles All the Way Down. So let me tell you, if you didn't watch my video from last week where I was surprised that it came out that day and I was super excited and I bought it on Audible and all that kind of stuff, I literally listened to it, you guys, in I don't know, 2 settings and had it done. And I am a super fan of John Green's. And I know a lot of people, there's this very... it's interesting on BookTube and with book readers and Bookstagram and book bloggers now, this whole you either love John Green or you hate John Green, right? And if you love John Green, it's very much okay, here's how it is. He's kind of like the Dave Matthews Band. The college kids who like the Dave Matthews Band versus the diehard Dave Matthews Band fans of back in the day. It's people think he's a sellout because John Green got so huge and all this kind of stuff. I don't think that John Green is a sellout. I think that John Green is a fantastic storyteller, and I think his writing is beautiful. So for me, I just want to say this going into this, okay? For me, I don't have to pick him apart, and people are oh, his writing is trite and all this kind of stuff, and he always writes these angsty characters, which we're going to get to in just a second. But, if you go back and you look at when John Green's book, The Fault in Our Stars, came out, and, that was his last book that he wrote, and that, Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, and all his books came out before that, when you look at that, John Green was really, he was the one that kind of reinvented the wheel best when it comes to teenage angsty characters. I don't know if that makes sense, but and the other thing is that I think that The Fault in Our Stars did for a lot of people for young adult reading that the Harry Potter books did for children wanting to read again. I think it's important that we acknowledge that, even if we feel maybe he isn't as great a writer as we've given him, acknowledgement for all these years. But I do think it's important to note that I think The Fault in Our Stars, the movie and the book, made a lot of people readers that maybe wouldn't have necessarily been that. And I think also brought a lot of attention to the young adult contemporary genre. And I know people right now are oh my God, I can't stand John Green, right? But I think for me, honestly, I can remember watching a Tyler Oakley video where he was talking about The Fault in Our Stars, and I really hadn't read any young adult books yet, let alone ended up writing a young adult book. And I remember getting the book and sitting out on the front porch and reading it, and I read it in 2 days, bawled my eyes out, and I was this is fantastic. I didn't even know at that time that young adult contemporary books, I didn't even know they were called young adult or contemporary books, existed, let alone the fact that they could move me so much. And I think for me, it's a lot that these books didn't exist when I was a teenager. So being able to go back and find these kinds of things now, these stories that exist, are fantastic. The problem is this, okay? And this is the problem with Turtles All the Way Down, is that what John Green wrote, let's say 5-10 years ago, was very popular at that time because there wasn't a lot of it out there, in a similar way that I would say that, all of this fantasy has changed over time. Fantasy 10 years ago looks completely different than fantasy today, and I don't read it, but let's just be honest, okay? Six of Crows is 10 times more evolved today than a book that we would have found 10 years ago. So it's these genres have totally evolved over time, and so we don't want to just hear about some angsty teen love story. We don't really care anymore. We want our characters to have depth and to have issues, and they better be dealt with real appropriately, because if they're not, and you're not being, it's we want to pick apart a book, right? And I found myself doing that as I went into Turtles All the Way Down. Now, I listened to it on Audible, which, I don't know if it would have made a difference to me. I will tell you, I did not love the narrator of this book. I actually thought she distracted me from the book. She actually does different voices for some of the characters, and it did not work for me whatsoever. So if you're going to read the book, read it. Don't listen to it on Audible, because it really distracted it for me. Going into this, I want you to know that my all-time favorite John Green book is The Fault in Our Stars. And then for me, it's Paper Towns. I hated the movie, but I loved the book. And I loved Fault in Our Stars, the movie. And then my third favorite is my third favorite is Abundance of Catherine's, and because I love a road trip book. I know. And then my last one, and I thought it was very innocently creative. Like, it was very obvious to me it was his first book. And it was like, David Arnold, I think, is the writer that did Mosquitoland. It reminded me of that, but I felt like David Arnold did it better. But like, I think, is that his name? But anyway, I love that book, Mosquitoland. Oh, it's one of my favorite books. But like, it reminded me kind of like Abundance of Catherine Zatt. Like, it reminded me, like, the character seemed very genuine, very innocent. Like, he seemed to like fall in love with his characters as he was writing them and care. He didn't seem to care a whole lot about his characters in Turtles All the Way Down. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this one, but you know, like, so I thought, well, he's a fantastic writer. His books have changed the world now at this point. I mean, he's been on bestseller lists for months and years and all this kind of stuff, right? It just did not live up to that hype for me. And I think it's hard when you have a writer that you love so much. And for me, it's very similar to Benjamin Alire Sainz, who wrote Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which I think is a 10 times finer book than anything that John Green has ever put out, just P.S. I love that book. But I will say this about Sainz as well. I also love Last Night I Sang to the Monster, which I think is one of the most fantastic fictional works about addiction and recovery that I've ever read in my entire life. You know, I can't think of the name, Juliana and somebody in Hollywood. That book is fantastic. He is such a great writer, but when he wrote The Inexplicable Logic of My Life that came out this year, I did not understand it. It felt like a rush job to me. It did not feel like it was true to who he is as a writer. Very similar to me, Turtles All the Way Down. What is interesting is I live in Indianapolis, and you hear through the grapevine where local celebrities live in Indianapolis. And I know where John Green lived is where a majority of the book takes place. I know where he lives now does not. So what was interesting to me in reading this book was that I wondered, did he start it where he used to live, which would have been 3 or 4 years ago, and then finished it recently? And I'll tell you why I asked that is because, and it's like, I don't like want this to sound weird when I'm saying it, but like as critiquing a piece of work, it's interesting to me where he picked as like place, like the Applebee's that's in the book, and I'm not going to ruin this for you, this is all spoiler free, you know, in different places that are in the book. What's interesting to me is that the first half of it seemed very much like an attempt at trying to be a great novel. The last half of it seemed like a great novel to me. Does that make sense? The first half seems like it's trying way too hard. The second half seems so natural and organic to me that I loved it. Had the whole book been like the second half or the last third, I think I would have loved the whole book. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. You know, the main character is very angsty, and she's very just a John Green character, and I could read a million characters of his like that, but it just didn't work for me in this context. You know, the other main character, I don't know. It was all so questionable to me. And it basically, at the end of the day, it's just another love story. I was bored with it. I wasn't excited about the mystery that evolved around it. I didn't care about the characters. The best friend of the main character is kind of a bitch. And like, it worked for the book, but like, I didn't like her as a character. I didn't even like the main character. There's a character in there that like gets in all this trouble at school. It's very confusing, okay? And I'm reading this as somebody that's worked with teenagers for 22 years and had a lot of friends that have kids around me that are that age. So it's not like I'm blind to being a teenager in 2017. But there just was so much of it to me that was just very questionable. I was like, my question, like listening to it was, do you know or talk to any teenagers anymore? Which I know he does. Like, I know he goes out and does stuff. So like, I was like, this isn't consistent with teenagers that I know today, right? I will tell you that one of the things that I loved about the book was the way that he weaves the title into the book. It's done beautifully, absolutely beautifully. What's interesting to me is that John said earlier in the year that he was not going to put out another book possibly. Do you guys remember that? I like lost my shit in BookTube and I said, John Green said he may never publish another book. So I'm wondering why he put this book out. I'm wondering if he thought if I'm going to put something out, I need to put it out now and be relevant, because this did not have to be his next book, okay? The story, it's very short, first of all, and it doesn't feel to me fully developed. The main character, the male main character, could have been developed 10 times better. I didn't care enough about the main character to be invested in her story, and so it didn't really work for me whatsoever. And then the end, like the way the mystery is solved, I mean, like Paper Towns, let's just be for real, was a pretty complex mystery of them. Like, the movie sucked, but the book of trying to find out where she was and going here and going, I mean, it was pretty complex. Like, I felt like I was solving a mystery as I went. That's not the case with this book. I mean, it's just you're bored with it. You don't even care at the end, right? One of the things that really bothered me, and I'll tell you, is at the very end of this book, there is a line, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it is, but I will tell you it's when the male main character makes a reference to the other girl, or in a blog post, I think. And he says something to the effect of, like, I don't even want to remember memories because the more you remember them, the more they hurt. And I was like, that statement is so familiar to me. I was like, I know that statement, and that cannot be like a rewording of Catcher in the Rye. Really? Like, would you really do that? I allegedly, I hope not. Maybe it just slipped into his mind or whatever, but when you see the line, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it actually references the very last line of Catcher in the Rye, and maybe that's what he meant to do, but I don't think so, because it's totally not even said the same way, but it's kind of the same influence, if that makes sense. And the line is, I think I even miss that goddamn Maurice. It's funny. Don't ever tell anybody anything. If you do, you start missing everybody. And that's how the Catcher in the Rye ends. And I was like, and that's basically the last statement that this character makes in the book. And I was like, no, John, like, I mean, if you're gonna do that, like, make the reference stronger. But like, I didn't understand what he was trying to do with this book. And you know, it's interesting because I'm reading all of these reviews and people are like, oh my God, this book is so fantastic. And this book is like so good and blah, blah, blah. Okay, it was filled with trite characters, like I said at the beginning, stereotypical angsty characters. The mystery was not well developed. I didn't care about the characters. I was not invested in them emotionally. The book deals with social anxiety, which I haven't even mentioned in almost 12 minutes of this video. It's a fine line in working with mental health of what the difference is between OCD and anxiety. And I'm not even going to get into this in that review, okay, in this review. The topic is touched upon, but like for the first half of the book, I think he meant the book to be a lot longer, honestly. The first half of the book, it's like not even really addressed. And then it's kind of like woven in at strange points with like the two characters' interactions. And then it leads to like a very critical point. But in my experience of working with that issue, it is not organic in the book, okay? And anybody that's gone through that exact same similar experience will say, no, it doesn't read true. It just doesn't. And that was what was bothersome to me as somebody that like The Fault in Our Stars was so researched well as far as like support groups and all that kind of stuff. And he had a history of working with cancer patients. That to me, I just kind of thought like, no, I don't like, this bothers me. Like, why even put it in there at all? Or is it that you're just trying to make this character, I don't know, like it bothered me. It really bothered me. And what bothers me more is that other people don't have issues with it. They're like, oh my God, yes, he dealt with anxiety. He dealt with anxiety so, like, it's so purposely and appropriate. And I'm like, okay, so I suffer from severe social anxiety and OCD, and I'm also an addict in recovery, and addicts in recovery have a lot of OCD in the ways that this character does in the book, and it doesn't play out to me in the same way. So I don't know, like, I'm kind of seriously thinking about waiting a month and rereading it and giving like a different response to it. Because you guys, honestly, you guys know I love John Green. If I am not getting on here to do some popular bullshit response and just say it wasn't that good. Like, I in my heart of hearts did not think it was that good. If I thought it was a 10-star out of 5-star, I would have got on here all day long and said it was the most fantastic book I've read. I was just let down. And what it makes you wonder is not, has John Green lost it, but was he ever that fantastic to begin with? So I don't know. What do you guys think? Leave in the comment section below. Don't spoil it for anybody, but let me know in the comment section below what you thought of the book. And yeah, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.